Opening statement. Inspector Thorne, private investigator. Date: October the 15th, 1927. Case file. I have been summoned to the coastal village of Greycliff, a desolate hamlet perched on the edge of the North Sea. Reports of ghostly voices and strange lights emanating from the abandoned Greycliff Lighthouse have left the locals in a state of unease. A young woman, Evelyn Cartwright, disappeared a fortnight ago, her last known location near the lighthouse. I suspect this will be yet another case where superstition obscures the truth, though the dread in the villagers' eyes gives me pause. Let the record show. I proceed with tempered skepticism. The journey to Greycliff was a somber one. The road wound through barren moors, where the wind howled incessantly, carrying with it the scent of salt and decay. By the time I arrived, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the village in shades of gray and shadow. The townsfolk were reserved, their wary gazes following me as I made my way to the inn. Mrs. Weatherby, the innkeeper, was a stout woman with a face as weathered as driftwood. She greeted me with a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Inspector Thorne, you'll find the lighthouse different from anything you've seen before," she said, her voice low. "It's been abandoned for over 20 years, yet the light comes on some nights, and the voices," she shuddered. "They say it calls to people. Poor Evelyn, she was such a sweet girl." "Was she prone to wandering?" I asked, noting the way her hands trembled as she poured tea. "Not until recently," Mrs. Weatherby replied. "She'd been unsettled these past few weeks, kept saying she heard someone calling her name from the cliffs. But no one else heard it, except, well, there's a reason none of us go near that place." Her words lingered in my mind as I prepared for the next day's investigation. Greycliff Lighthouse stood as a sentinel of despair, its weather-beaten stones and rusting iron railings a testament to years of neglect. The door, though warped and corroded, gave way with little effort, revealing a spiraling staircase that ascended into darkness. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and the faint tang of salt. As I climbed, I noted the graffiti etched into the walls. Desperate pleas, names, dates. One phrase repeated frequently: "They watch." My footsteps echoed in the confined space, the sound amplified by the oppressive silence. At the top, I found the lantern room. The massive Fresnel lens, though dusty, remained intact, its intricate design catching the faint light of dawn. Yet it was the view beyond that drew my attention. The vast expanse of the sea seemed endless, its surface churning as though alive. For a moment, I thought I saw shapes beneath the waves, but they vanished when I blinked. That night, I stationed myself at the base of the lighthouse. Armed with a flask of coffee and a notebook, I settled in to observe. Hours passed uneventfully, until, just past midnight, the air grew still. The wind ceased its relentless assault, and a profound silence enveloped the area. Then, the light came on. It wasn't the steady beam of a functioning lighthouse, but a flickering, erratic glow, as if the mechanism were struggling against the weight of years. With it came the voices. They were faint at first, like whispers carried on the wind, but they grew louder, distinct. Male and female voices, young and old, speaking in overlapping tones. Most of the words were unintelligible, but one phrase cut through the cacophony: "Join us." A chill ran down my spine. I approached the entrance, my hand resting on the revolver at my side. The voices seemed to emanate from within, urging me to climb. Against my better judgment, I ascended once more. The lantern room was empty, yet the voices persisted, now accompanied by a low hum that vibrated through the floor. I scanned the room, my eyes drawn to the lens. It reflected not my image, but a distorted version of the room, where shadowy figures moved with unnatural grace. Then, I saw her, Evelyn. She stood on the opposite side of the lens, her face pale and her eyes wide with terror. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, her form flickering like a poorly tuned radio. "Evelyn," I shouted, but she didn't respond. Instead, she raised her hand, pointing toward the spiral staircase. I turned, but the stairwell was empty. When I looked back, she was gone. The next day, I consulted the village records. The lighthouse keeper, one Samuel Merriweather, had vanished 20 years earlier, under circumstances eerily similar to Evelyn's. His final logbook entry read, "The light, It's alive. It watches. It waits. I can hear them calling my name. The pattern was clear. The lighthouse was a trap, luring its victims with promises of answers or salvation. But why? And to what end? Dr. Alaric Vaughan's insights proved invaluable once again. When I described the phenomena, he spoke of the Tideworn, entities said to dwell at the edges of reality, using water as a conduit. They required a beacon to draw souls, and the lighthouse had become their instrument. If the voices are calling Evelyn, her essence may already be partially entwined with theirs, Dr. Vaughan warned. To sever the connection, you'll need to extinguish the light. But be warned, they won't let her go easily. Armed with this knowledge, I returned to the lighthouse that night, carrying a lantern, a crowbar, and a flask of holy water Dr. Vaughan insisted I take. The journey to the top was a blur, my heart pounding with every step. When I reached the lantern room, the light blazed, brighter and more erratic than before. The voices were deafening, a symphony of anguish and temptation. Evelyn appeared once more, her image clearer now. She was crying, her hands pressed against the glass of the lens. "Help me," she mouthed. I smashed the lens with the crowbar, each blow shattering the unnatural reflections. The voices screamed in protest, a sound that resonated deep within my skull. As the final shard fell, the light flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. When I lit my lantern, Evelyn was gone. In her place lay a locket, its chain broken. Inside was a photograph of her and an inscription. "To my dearest Evelyn, love, Mother." Closing statement. Case file. Whispers in the Lighthouse concluded. Evelyn Cartwright remains missing, though I recovered a personal effect that may bring some solace to her family. The light at Greycliff Lighthouse has been extinguished, and the voices silenced, at least for now. Yet, I cannot ignore the sensation that something lingers. The Tideworn, as Dr. Vaughan described them, are a reminder of forces beyond our understanding. As I leave Greycliff, I am haunted by one question. If these entities can reach through the veil, what's to stop them from doing so again? End recording.